Good evening, friends. I welcome you all to the Hindu and the Businessline editorial analysis on 8th June 2022. In the first editorial, the article discusses about the situations at Bengal, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala regarding the conflict between the governor's position as well and the chief minister's position with regard to the appointments of VCs at the universities. West Bengal governor has complained that the chief minister of West Bengal has taken over the role of chancellor of universities, the state-run universities in West Bengal. Recently, the West Bengal chief minister has appointed the vice chancellor in a university, state-run university. Tamil Nadu has also done the same. It has passed a bill for replacing the chief minister as the chancellor of the universities in Tamil Nadu. It is also mooting a university for alternative medicine in which the chief minister will be the chancellor. In Kerala, the conflict of interest about VC's appointment has led to governor demanding chief minister to appoint the VC. The article says that the time is ripe so that the the law should give way for chief ministers, that is the elected government's role in universities. However, it must be seen that the politics do not mar the kind of education and quality which is being provided in universities. Earlier, the Sarkaria Commission had reported that the governor's role, constitutional role in respect of universities, had been very much vindicative, that it had conflicted with the state politics. And the Sarkaria Commission had retorted that the governor should not consult with the state politics or politics executive in universities matters and in appointments. The in 2020, Punji Commission, Justice Punji Commission, had argued that the governor should not be burdened with the day-to-day roles of the state politics, and the appointment of university vice chancellor should be left to the state chief. Next article is Boris Johnson's recent face-saving win of 59% of its conservative votes in the no confidence motion being raised against him. The article says that going by the previous or past records, it can be seen that even Margaret Thatcher had faced no confidence motion in 1990s. However, she had to quit later because the situations became so grim that it was inevitable for her to quit. In 2018, the Theresa May also faced the same kind of crisis of no confidence, and although she won the no confidence motion by 63% of the votes of her conservatives, but she had to quit later because of the grim circumstances which gripped England. So this is kind of what you call a wake-up call for Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is accused of partying in the Downing Street when the whole of England was under lockdown. So these kind of situations, the policies of Boris Johnson, he is a Brexiter. Brexiter means he was in support or campaigning for exit of Britain out of the European Union. European Union was the major trade partner for Britain. However, on its Brexit entry, it had to suffer a loss. It had to eat the humble pie. So the Boris Johnson's policies must show the way in which the confidence of the people is gained. The next article discusses the GST Council's conflict with the sovereignty of the states to pass laws on GST. Recently, the Supreme Court held that in the Mohit Minerals case, Supreme Court held that the GST Council is not having any kind of power on the sovereignty and the federalism of the states in passing laws under Article 246A. This article is full about the conflict of 279A and the Article 246A. The Supreme Court has ruled that Article 246A shall prevail over 279A of the Constitution. 279A of the Constitution has given the powers to the GST Council and the forming of the GST Council. GST Council is a council of state finance ministers and the union finance minister as its members. GST Council in the GST Council, the union government has a veto power of one third of the votes, and the state finance ministers, the state governments have two-thirds of the votes. But any decision to be passed is by three-fourths majority. Hence, the union government has a veto power because it has one third of the votes in the GST Council. In the recent most of the notifications of the central government, it has been seen that under the section 5 of the CGST Act, most of the cases we can see that the notification says that it is subject to the recommendation of the council. Based on the council's recommendation, GST Council's recommendation, this notification has been issued. Friends, you must not forget one point, that GST Council is, after all, a council formed out of the executives of the state and the union executive finance minister. It is not an elected body. So, if the non-elected body is left to decide on the tax laws of a country, this is not in keeping with the spirit of the Constitution and the spirit on which the GST law has been brought into. The article goes in length in discussing the simultaneous lawmaking powers of the state government and the union government under Article 246A of the Constitution and the GST Council's powers under 279A, Article 279A of the Constitution. Although the CGST laws can be amended by the union government under CGST Act, and the SGST, that is state GST, can be amended by the state governments, the IGST, the integrated GST, falls under the power of union government. The article remembers the 17th century philosopher John Locke, who said that the legislative powers cannot be transferred to any other body. Friends, it is true for the GST Council. The GST Council has no right to infringe upon the federal powers of the state government. The GST Council is based on the concept of cooperative federalism. In cooperative federalism, what happens is that the cooperation among the states and the union government is being called for in decisions making of the GST Council. Friends, the next article I am going to discuss is the shadows over global growth recovery are long. It begins by saying that the Ukraine war has just destroyed the prospects of an economic recovery which had started after the COVID-19 pandemic. The Ukraine war has spoiled most of the prospects of a very energized economic recovery. Instead of that, it has destroyed all prospects by raising the fuel prices and energy prices. Safety nets should be increased. The safety nets for the labor sector. The labor sector is, just facing kind of displacement. The displacement means the labor sector is thrown out of their work and it starts struggling. So safety nets for the laborers is being proposed by the article. Ensuring the safety nets. Safety net means providing them free food and subsidies and more economic benefits to them so that they can survive this crisis. While ensuring the safety nets for the laborers, it should not be seen that it increases the unemployment. This is what article. The next article which I am going to discuss is the crime and copyrights. The recent Supreme Court in NITCO International has held that the copyrights infringement has been made a cognizable offense. What is a cognizable offense, my dear friends? The cognizable offense empowers police officers to go ahead with registering a case and investigate the case by themselves without court's interference and just catching them or nabbing the culprits of the copyrights infringement. Whereas a non-cognizable offense says that in non-cognizable offense, the court will first investigate the court will first decide on the requirement of investigation on the case and then entrust the case to a police officer. That is a non-cognizable offense. Non-cognizable offenses are not arrestable, and in cognizable offense, the immediate arrest is being ensured. The article goes on to say that whether the police officers of India are so much knowledgeable about the difference between copyright infringement and the non infringement. The copyright infringement is not a crime as per the international law, that is TRIPS agreement. The TRIPS agreement is the law of the agreement of the WTO, the World Trade Organization. As per the TRIPS agreement means the trade related aspects of intellectual property rights. The copyright infringement is not an offense, but the article draws out a distinction between the copyright infringement and the copyright piracy. The copyright infringement means use of some of the items of the article or some kind of copyrighted material for his own use or for channelizing the use of others. The copyright piracy means, suppose you have written a book and you have the owner of the copyright of that book. The book is being reproduced by some person in a very mass manner to have some kind of profits on that. Such is the copyright piracy. Infringement is not so much very dangerous thing and it doesn't harm the copyright owner. Recently, the Rangde Basandi director was just let free by the Supreme Court in the case of Rangde Basandi. Friends, the next article I am going to discuss is with regard to China's decoding the China's occupation. China is constructing something in the Bangsong So. This is kind of a violation of the international law, is what the article begins by saying. China is unmindful of kind of activities it's doing since 1958. In 1958, the Aksai Chin the bridge was constructed connecting two important major areas of China, and China, without any kind of announcement, started the war. And India protested, but the China started the war in 1962, and it was a kind of egregious activity. China's use of force for its own causes is very much disturbing. Pangong So is in the India's territory, and a portion of the bridge it constructed is in India's territory. India has the right to oppose. In the UN Charter, there is a article called 2 sub article 4. Under 2 sub article 4, India has every right to oppose China's move. However, China is unmindful of the opposition being raised by India. This kind of indifferent attitude of China is disturbing. The article goes on to say that in Palestine, a wall was constructed, and the International Court of Justice at Hague opposed it. In Nicaragua constructed a canal and occupied the territories of Costa Rica, and the International Court of Justice intervened, and it just pronounced the sentence on international break of law. However, the article says that when a kind of construction which is with the purpose of creating harmony is being done between countries, it is okay. But flouting the international law and provoking another country is against the spirit of the UN Charter and the United Nations for which the international law exists. The spirit of international law should not be broken is what the article says all about. The next article I am going to take up is from the Businessline. The article is titled, Will the WTO Wake Up to the Food Crisis? You know, with the Ukraine war, Ukraine was the major producer of wheat and exporter of wheat. The world is under a dark after the Ukraine war due to the wheat deficiency, and most of the food grains deficiency is looming large in the whole world. In recent times, in April, the Rabi harvest of wheat in India was very difficult due to some climatic changes and some heavy rainfall and all. Therefore, the wheat stock in India has declined, and the wheat prices in India are now at a 50-year high. So, what this article is discussing all about? India has been supporting around 800 million poor people through its Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Yojana and food security systems. So, government of India is feeding the poor through this kind of programs, and Indian government is procuring the food grains at the minimum support price, and the minimum support price is there to encourage the farmers to sell their harvest to the government at a very comfortable price. And what happens is that a subsidy is also provided for the inputs used in agriculture such as fertilizers and the seeds. What then is conflicting with the WTO is that the WTO has an agreement on agriculture, that is, a maximum 10% subsidy can only be given on inputs in the agricultural sector. It was done to prevent European Union to produce tons and tons, mountains of food grains and butter. However, this is coming in between the country's support for the farmers and the kind of stringent regulations WTO is imposing through its agreement on agriculture. What does this problem? What is this problem? What is this problem? The problem is that the WTO has fixed a rate on which the subsidy can be provided. It is the difference between the minimum support price and the fixed external reference point. The external reference point is the export price set. The export price set is taken as a benchmark for the external reference point, and it is deducted from the minimum support price. So, a subsidy works like this. However, the developing countries in this looming crisis wants to procure the food grains at the minimum support price. There is something called a public stockholding. There is no public stockholding fixed at the international level, my dear friends. In India, India and other developing countries cannot go beyond a 10% of the base, the benchmark prices as subsidy. However, the developed world has some kind of riders on with regard to this. They can provide 100% subsidy also. This is a conflict. So the 12th Ministerial Conference of the WTO, which is going to be held, recently the G33 countries, out of G33 countries, India and China have opposed the public stockholding patterns being prescribed by the WTO members. The new M12, that is Ministerial Conference, 12th Ministerial Conference, the developing countries are going to raise some points. That is, some public stockholding should be permanently fixed. In Bali conference in 2013, a peace solution, that is a peace solution was fixed so that peace challenge was provided so that the uh, public stockholding could go beyond the WTO norms without facing any kind of legal challenges. The developing countries are going to demand a continuing solution to this peace clause in the WTO agreement. They want the public stockholding to be fixed, and they want a revision of the external reference point for the subsidy calculation. So these kind of issues are going to be raised at the WTO conference because the world is now looming under hunger and food scarcity. The WTO has to make a very remarkable or the very fundamental uh, you know solution to the problems of food crisis through amending most of the laws on agreement on agriculture and the fixing of the public stockholding limit and the unending solution to the peace clause in the WTO agreement. The next article I am going to discuss is titled Banks Need to Raise Credit Limit, that is to meet growing demand. There is something called asset liability management at the treasury level of a bank. What is this asset liability management? The asset liability mismatch occurs when the ratio of credit and deposit is going on in decreasing. The ratio of credit and deposit is now at 91%. Earlier it was 98%. It has to reach the 100% limit because the balancing of the credit and deposit is very much necessary, my dear friends. Most of the core banking solutions at the centralized level of solutions are aimed at percolating down to the branch level mobilizing of deposits. Now we need more and more deposits, my dear friends, because the credit demand is very much high because of the global. The article discusses the terms centralized online real time exchange, that is core banking solution, the line function, the treasury function, and the centralized function. What is line function, my dear friends? Line function is aimed at the branch level. The branch level has to provide advances to the customers, the businessmen. The mobilizing of deposits has to be done at the branch level. So, at the core banking level, that is centralized online real time exchange level, that is centralized level, the asset liability management is being done. Who has to have this asset liability management, my dear friends? The branch level, it has to ensure that the cheap kind of deposits are being mobilized. CASA, there is something called CASA. CASA means current account and savings bank account deposits. These are harmless deposits, my dear friends, which has to be mobilized to bridge this credit deposit gap. That is, this is the solution which is done at the branch level, which will help the treasury management to solve the crisis in asset liability. The credit deposit ratio was at 78% in 2019 and now it is at 71%. So there is a huge gap. The huge gap has to be mitigated only by proper asset liability management. The asset liability management has to be properly managed at the treasury level, the core banking level, so that the branch level, that line functions, the line function means the branch level functions have to adequately supplement the core level functions. So the credit deposit ratio has to be bridged, my dear friends. That is the necessity, and this article goes all about in saying this. The next article is titled The World of Work is Changing. The article just describes two of the major changes happening in the work culture in this world. That is, One thing is the work from home is proliferating. The work from home is proliferating, and the 4 day work week is proliferating. So these two changes are being seen in this world. Most of the countries are just thinking about this 4 day work. India has also recently implemented a change in this structure, and Microsoft Japan has experimented with this and has found success. The productivity of the workers increased with the 4 day week. Elon Musk is asking its employees to come back to office. The London mayor, that is Khan, is asking the workers to come to office. And the New York mayor, Eric Adams, is asking employees to come back. Similar with the Morgan Chase and the JP Morgan. These two banks are also asking employees to come back. The Morgan Chase's Demond and JP Morgan's Solomon are have asked employees to come back to office. The office work shows lots of improvements is what they are thinking. However, the employees are just protesting it, and it has seen that after some time these employees are just again started working from home. What is this backfiring of the technique is happening, my dear friends? Most of the times what happens is that work from home just saves most of the people from uh, again migrating to cities where it is the living is very much costly, my dear friends. Through rent and the standard of living, the workers are preferring more, the international workers are preferring more and more, and the employees are preferring more and more work from home kind of culture, is what this article is going about saying. This article is a very beautiful article. Please go through. You will get many insights into the COVID inflicted changes which has happened in this work culture of the world. The next article is about the middle-aged education. The persons who are in the career, in the middle of the career, and are professionals, and they want some kind of improvement in their career. So the educating them and providing them diplomas and training is very much necessary. IIMs have such kind of programs. The IITs have such kind of programs, and some tech universities have some kind of programs for the middle-aged people. The middle-aged people cannot full-time study is a factor which is a very big disadvantage in this way. But their weekend program, the weekend program of the middle for the middle-aged people, like, so there are some places where weekend classes are there or evening classes are there, and the next challenge is providing them some kind of a training. This is a very difficult thing. On the job training is very difficult for universities to provide. Though IITs, IIMs have the on the job training structure, it's very difficult. And then what is more coming in between the education for middle-aged people and the study at IIM and IITs is that it's very costly. The IITs and IIMs are making their programs very much expensive for middle-aged people to follow. Therefore, the article is stressing on the need of public universities like IGNO. The IGNO is already having so many post-graduation programs and on-the-job training programs and diploma programs for the middle-aged people. The article is calling for more and more such kind of programs to be introduced in universities so that the middle-aged people will have some kind of comfortable weekend study structure, so that they can upgrade and become the new world driven skills, so that it helps the work culture and the work in their career also, and the companies in which they are employed or the public spaces in which they are employed, they can also reap the benefits of these middle-aged people, because they are going means the next 20 years is going to be driven by the presence of such middle-aged people in the workspace. Hence, educating them is a greater help which we are going not only not to them, but also for the economy and the quality of service being provided by companies and the public